Welcome to HFY, Kids, where stars remember. Hearts of humans and stars of aliens beat together. And every story is born where the universe learns to dream. Asterisk. The human pilot's ship shook hard as it fell through the alien sky. Flames licked the windows, alarms screamed. And smoke filled the small cockpit. He tried to pull the ship up. But the engines were gone. Outside, giant green trees rushed toward him, growing bigger every second, then crash. The ship slammed into the jungle, tearing through branches and rocks, metal bent, glass shattered, and everything went black for a few moments. When he opened his eyes, the world was quiet, too quiet. Blood ran down his forehead, and his leg hurt badly. His ship was broken in pieces, burning slowly in the strange blue grass. He grabbed his emergency bag and limped away. Moments later, the fuel cells exploded behind him. Lighting up the sky, he walked deeper into the jungle. Trees glowing with soft light, strange sounds echoed, clicks, hums, low growls. The jungle felt alive, like it was watching him. As the sun set, the air turned cold, and a soft mist rolled in. His strength faded, and he collapsed near a cave hidden behind thick vines. He crawled inside, hoping for safety. It was dark but warm and smelled of earth and herbs. He leaned against the wall and closed his eyes, too tired to think. Suddenly, a tiny footstep, soft and careful. He opened his eyes and saw her, a small alien girl with greenish skin, bright eyes and long black hair. She stood just a few feet away, holding something in her little hands. It was a wooden bowl filled with warm soup. Steam rising gently, she looked at him, not with fear, but with curiosity. She stepped closer, slowly, watching his face. He was too weak to speak, but he nodded once. She placed the bowl beside him, then stepped back quickly. The soup smelled strange but sweet. He took a sip. Warmth spread through his chest like fire and comfort at the same time. He looked at her and whispered, "Thank you." She tilted her head, not understanding his words, but she smiled, a small, honest smile, and turned to leave before she could disappear into the shadows. A deep growl shook the cave. The girl froze, her smile gone. From the darkness behind her, a tall shadow appeared. It was her mother, towering, fierce, covered in armor-like skin. Her eyes glowed like hot coals, her mouth curled in warning. She pushed the girl behind her gently, then stared at the human. Her voice came low and sharp, full of anger and threat. The human couldn't understand her words, but the meaning was clear. She pointed at him, then drew her finger across her throat. She said something in her language, something that made the cave feel colder than the jungle outside. Then she growled one word that somehow he could understand: sunrise. The human's heart pounded. He had just been fed by a kind alien child, but now her mother had promised death by morning. Asterisk. The human woke up slowly. His body ached, and the ground felt cold under his back. He reached for the empty soup bowl near his hand. The taste of the warm soup still lingered on his tongue, but the little girl who gave it to him was gone. Instead, the tall alien woman stood near the cave's mouth. Her arms were crossed, her eyes glowing red in the dim light. She did not move, did not speak, just watched him. Her face showed no mercy, only warning. He tried to sit up, but sharp pain shot through his side. He groaned softly, and her eyes narrowed. She stepped forward, slow and silent like a hunter. He held up his hand open, showing he meant no harm. But she said something in her strange language, cold, harsh words. He didn't understand her words, but her tone was clear. She didn't trust him, not one bit. Still, she didn't kill him. Instead, she tied his hands gently but firmly using soft vines. They weren't like ropes, they moved when she whispered to them. She left him near the fire and walked back to the entrance. Outside, the jungle howled, and strange creatures screamed. The firelight flickered on the cave walls. He sat quietly watching her. She didn't sleep, didn't rest, just stood guard like a statue. Time passed slowly. Suddenly, small footsteps echoed in the cave again. The little alien girl returned. Holding something in her hands, it was another bowl of soup. Steaming and fresh, she looked at her mother. Waiting for permission, the tall woman looked down at her daughter. Her face didn't soften, but she gave a single nod. The girl smiled and walked to the human. She placed the bowl in front of him and sat a few steps away. Watching him eat, he nodded and whispered, "Thank you." She tilted her head and giggled softly. He took a careful sip. The soup warmed his chest and the pain eased, just a little. He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. A photo faded and crumpled from his jacket. It showed him holding a small human girl with curly hair. He pointed at the photo, then at his chest. Then he pointed at the little alien girl and smiled. The girl leaned forward to look at the photo. Her eyes lit up, full of wonder. She looked at him, then at the picture, and pointed back at herself. He nodded slowly. They didn't speak the same words, but something passed between them, trust. The mother stepped closer, looking at the photo. Her eyes changed just a little. But when the girl reached for the human's hand, the mother growled. She pulled the child away and stood between them again. The moment was over. Suddenly, loud screeches echoed from the jungle. Something huge passed outside the cave, heavy, fast, dangerous. The mother placed one hand on the wall. The vines near the entrance grew tighter, blocking the opening. The human looked around. He was trapped, weak and tied. The mother stared at him with eyes like fire. She leaned down and whispered one word in English, "Danger." Then she sat near the entrance again. Silent, still, the child curled beside her, resting her head on her mother's leg. The human leaned against the cave wall. He didn't know what the jungle held. But he knew one thing now: he wasn't alone. But the one watching him might still decide to end his life. And morning was getting closer. Night wrapped the jungle in silence. The fire in the cave burned low, casting soft shadows. The human stayed still, tied by the living vines. The alien child was asleep near her mother's side, and the mother sat at the entrance, wide awake, silent, guarding outside. Something moved, leaves rustled. Heavy footsteps pressed into the earth. The mother tensed, her eyes glowing in the dark. She whispered something to the vines. They tightened around the entrance. But it was too late. A loud snarl broke the air. A massive beast leapt through the vine's 6 legs. Black fur and glowing teeth, it roared. Shaking the cave walls, the mother rushed forward with a sharp bone blade. The child screamed and hid behind a stone. The beast struck, claws tearing across the cave floor. The mother dodged and stabbed, but the blade barely scratched its skin. It slammed her into the wall. She fell hard, blood dripping from her shoulder. The human's eyes widened. She was hurt, maybe dying. He struggled against the vines, shouting, "Let me help." The child turned to him, eyes full of fear. She ran to his side and touched the vines. They loosened slowly, confused by her touch and her tears. With his hands free, he grabbed the emergency flare from his belt. He struck it, whoosh. A blast of red fire lit up the cave. The beast roared and turned toward him, blinded by the light. He charged forward and shoved the burning flare into its face. The creature screamed and backed away, fire dancing across its fur. It turned and ran from the cave, crashing through the jungle trees. Smoke filled the air, and the flare flickered out. The human dropped to his knees beside the injured mother. Blood soaked her side, and she breathed heavy and slow. He looked around, thinking fast, then grabbed a hot rock from the fire. He ripped cloth from his shirt and pressed it to her wound. She winced, eyes locking with his, confused, angry, but also surprised. He took a metal piece from his bag, heated it in the flames, then with a deep breath, pressed it to the wound. Sealing it with a hiss, she cried out once, but did not strike him. The child held her mother's hand, tears running down her cheeks. Time passed slowly. The cave was quiet again, but the firelight danced between them. The human sat back, breathing hard. His hands shook. His clothes were torn, and his skin was burnt. But he had saved her life. The mother opened her eyes, weak but awake. She looked at him, not with hate this time, but with something else, something unsure. She whispered a word in her own tongue, one he didn't understand. Then she looked at the child, who nodded softly for the first time. The mother did not tie him again. Instead, she pointed to a stone bed in the corner. A silent gesture rest. The human nodded, too tired to speak, and lay down. The vines moved slightly, but not to bind him, only to cover the cave entrance. The child stayed close to him this time, and the mother, though wounded, sat between them both. Not as a jailer, but something else, something beginning to change. Morning came slow and heavy. Sunlight slipped through the cracks in the cave, painting soft lines on the wall. The human opened his eyes, pain still in his bones. The little alien girl was already awake. Sitting near the fire, she smiled when she saw him, then pointed to a new bowl of soup. He sat up, moving carefully, every muscle sore. The alien mother lay nearby, wrapped in a thick mossy blanket. Her eyes were closed, and her breathing was shallow but steady. She was still healing, still quiet. But she hadn't stopped him from resting inside her home. He ate the soup slowly, noticing something strange. His body felt warmer, stronger than before. The burns on his hands hurt less, and the cut on his arm had already begun to close. He looked at the girl and pointed at the bowl, then at his wound. "Is it the soup?" he asked softly. She nodded, then stood and gestured for him to follow. He hesitated, looking at the mother, but the child tugged his hand gently. The mother opened her eyes, saw them both, and for the first time said nothing. It was silent permission. The girl led him through thick jungle paths. She moved like she knew every tree, every root, every hidden step. Bird-like creatures chirped above, and glowing insects danced in the air. Finally, they reached a place where the trees parted and the light grew brighter. A spring bubbled in the middle, its water glowing faint blue around it. Strange flowers bloomed, colors he had never seen before. The girl dipped her hand into the water and drank, then pointed to a small plant growing near the edge. She plucked a few leaves, crushed them in her hands, and let the juice drip into the water. He watched closely. The water shimmered brighter, almost alive. She handed him the glowing mix in a stone cup. He drank it, and warmth rushed through his chest like fire and light. Suddenly, the world seemed louder, colors deeper, his pain almost gone. He looked at her, stunned. This spring wasn't just water, it was sacred. And the soup had been made with these same glowing plants. No wonder it healed so fast. The girl pointed to a carved symbol on a nearby stone. It showed an alien figure giving the plant to another. But then a third figure arrived, tall, angry, burning everything. He understood this place was forbidden to outsiders. Giving him the soup had broken a powerful rule. His eyes widened, and he pointed to himself. Then to the symbol. The girl nodded slowly. Guilt in her eyes. She had saved him, but at great risk. If her people found out, there would be punishment. Not just for her, but for her mother too. They walked back slowly, the human deep in thought. When they returned to the cave, the mother sat up, watching them both. He knelt before her and held out his hands open. Empty, peaceful. Then he pointed to the sky. Then to the soup, then to his heart. He was trying to say, "I owe you everything." The mother looked at the girl, then at him. Her face showed fear, but also understanding. She whispered something soft to the vines. They loosened completely. No more bindings, no more chains. He helped her sit up and placed another moss wrap on her shoulder. She didn't stop him. The little girl sat between them, smiling softly, and in that quiet moment, something old broke, and something new began. The wind changed that morning. It blew cold from the north, carrying the scent of metal and smoke. The alien mother stood at the mouth of the cave, her face tense. She sniffed the air and growled softly. Danger was coming. The human stood beside her. His body stronger now, his wounds almost gone. He saw fear in her eyes, not for herself, but for her child. The little girl clutched a soft cloth doll. Worn and patched with moss, the cave felt smaller, tighter, like the air was holding its breath. Then the sound came: footsteps. Heavy and fast, not one or two, but many. The ground trembled, birds flew from trees, and the vines outside stiffened. The mother grabbed her spear, still weak but ready. She looked at the human and said one word: hide. But it was too late. A group of tall warriors stepped into view, armor made from bark and bones, their faces painted in black and red, eyes cold. They held weapons shaped like long claws and blades made from glowing stones. The leader stepped forward, his voice deep and harsh. The mother stood firm, the child behind her. The human stepped out slowly, raising his hands in peace. Gasps filled the air. One warrior dropped his weapon in shock. The leader growled and pointed at the human. Words flew between them, sharp like knives. The child tried to speak, her small voice lost in the noise, but no one listened. The tribe leader pointed at the mother. He shouted, accusing her of betrayal, of sheltering the human enemy. The punishment? Death, or worse, banishment, and the child taken away to be cleansed by the elders. The human stepped forward and dropped to his knees. He placed his hands on the ground, bowing low, trying to show respect, trying to protect them. The tribe murmured in confusion. This was not what they expected. A human who bowed? A human who knelt instead of fought? The leader didn't care. He raised his blade high. But the mother stepped between him and the human. Her voice cut through the air like lightning. She claimed the human was her prisoner, a sacrifice to be offered at sunrise. The tribe froze, eyes wide, unsure. The leader paused, then slowly nodded. If the human died at dawn, the tribe would accept it. But the child ran forward, tears falling. She hugged the human tightly, pressing her face to his chest. Gasps filled the air again, this time louder. The leader's face twisted in anger and disgust. He shouted, saying the child was corrupted, poisoned by human touch. Now the punishment would be doubled. Either the human dies now, or the child is taken from the mother forever. The mother's hands trembled, her spear dropped to the ground. She looked at her daughter, then at the human. Her eyes were full of pain, full of fire. She stepped forward and said one sentence in her native tongue, but the human understood it in his heart. If he dies, I die with him. The tribe fell silent. Even the leader seemed shaken, but tradition was strong. The elders demanded a trial of fire, a brutal challenge that no outsider had ever survived. The human stood tall. He did not understand the full rules, but he nodded. He would face whatever came, not to prove himself, but to save them both. The jungle waited, quiet and cold. The ground had been cleared in a circle of black stone. This was the trial of fire. No outsider had ever faced it and lived. The human stood in the center, his shirt torn, his feet bare, his heart steady. The tribe gathered around the edges, silent like statues. Torches burned in the dark, casting long shadows. The alien mother stood near the edge, her arms still bandaged, her face hard to read. The child clung to her side, eyes wide with fear. She whispered words only her mother could hear. He saved you. Please, don't let them take him. The leader of the tribe stepped forward. Holding a glowing staff, he pointed to the human. Then to the far side of the trial ring. There, behind a wall of spears, stood a gate made of vines and smoke. The voice of the elder rang out. To live, he must walk through the fire. To earn mercy, he must spill the beast's blood. To prove truth, he must come back alone. The gate opened, and a horrible growl echoed from the dark. A beast stepped out, massive, armored, with burning yellow eyes. Its back was covered in thick plates, and smoke hissed from its nostrils. The crowd backed away. But the human stood still. He had no armor, only a spear made from bone and rope. The beast charged. The human rolled to the side, barely missing its tusks. He ran, leaping over a low fire pit. The beast followed, crushing rocks under its weight. He stabbed once, nothing. The bones snapped on the creature's hide. The mother stepped forward, heart pounding. The girl grabbed her hand, whispering, "Please help him." But the mother said nothing. She watched as the man tripped, the beast circling him again. Then she saw it. He wasn't fighting to win. He was fighting to protect the child's future. The beast lunged again. This time he dodged and grabbed a burning log. He shoved it into the beast's eye, and it roared in pain, using the distraction. He jumped on its back and grabbed a weak joint behind the neck, with a sharp piece of fire-hardened bone. He stabbed again and again until the beast fell to its knees, and then collapsed, silent. Smoke rose around him as he limped from the ring. His arm was bleeding, his leg torn, but he was alive. The tribe stood in stunned silence. The leader lowered his staff slowly. Some of the warriors even bowed their heads, but then betrayal. From the side, a rival clan elder who had hated the mother for years stepped forward. He shouted, "This is no trial. This is weakness. He must still die." He raised his weapon and charged the human, before the mother could stop him. The blade struck deep into the human's side. The crowd gasped. The girl screamed. The human fell to one knee, blood pouring down his side. But before the elder could strike again, the mother moved like lightning. She knocked the weapon aside and struck the elder to the ground. She shouted in her ancient tongue, voice full of rage and power, "No more blood. He has passed. And if he dies, I burn this tribe to the ground." The circle fell silent. The human lay in the dirt, breathing slow. The girl knelt beside him, pressing her small hands to the wound. The firelight danced on his face as his eyes began to close. But his lips moved, whispering one word, "Safe?" He woke to warmth. A soft glow flickered across the cave walls. The pain in his side was still there, but it was dull. The sharp edges of death had passed. He was alive. The little alien girl sat beside him. Head resting on his shoulder, she had fallen asleep holding his hand. On the other side of the fire, the mother watched silently. Her wounds had healed more, her face calmer than before. She no longer looked like a warrior ready to kill, but like something older, something stronger, a protector. The human sat up slowly. Groaning, the child opened her eyes and smiled wide. He smiled back, weak but real. Then he looked at the mother. She nodded once and stood, walking toward him. In her hands was a wooden cup filled with sacred soup. She knelt down, placed it beside him, and said her first full sentence in his language, "Drink, Fireheart." He blinked. "Fireheart?" He whispered. She nodded. "In my tongue it means the one who burns to protect." She placed her hand on her own chest, then on his. "Our Fireheart now." Tears welled up in the little girl's eyes. She clapped softly, smiling big, repeating, "Fireheart, Fireheart." It became a chant, soft, joyful, real. The tribe accepted him after that. Not all at once, but slowly, step by step. They let him sit near their fires, eat their food, and speak with their children. Some called him brave, some still called him foolish, but none called him enemy anymore. With time, he helped rebuild the boundary wall that protected their jungle. He taught them small tricks, ways to use tech gently, not harmfully. And he learned their ways in return, how to listen to wind, how to feel the language of vines, how to understand life through their silence. One morning, the sky broke open. A human ship arrived drawn by his lost beacon. It hovered above the trees, sending signals down. Are you alive? Do you require rescue? He stood at the jungle's edge, holding the communicator in his hand. The child held his other hand tightly. Afraid, the mother stood beside them, quiet, waiting. The humans on the ship begged him to return. They offered healing, medals, a way home. But his eyes looked not at the sky. They looked at the girl who had first fed him soup. At the mother who once promised death, but gave him purpose. At the jungle that once tried to kill him. Now holding him like home, he turned off the communicator. No, I'm already home. The ship left, confused but obeying. The tribe threw a small fire dance that night. And during the ceremony, the mother stepped forward. She raised her hand and spoke in the old language. Words that meant belonging, bond and blood, not born but chosen. She looked at the human and said, "Fireheart is of our flame now." He stepped forward and did something no human had done before. He gave her his earth name. Whispering it gently, she repeated it, soft and careful, then smiled. "I will call you both." And the girl, laughing, shouted into the night, "Two names, one soul." The fire crackled, the stars above watched, and in a world far from Earth, a human found family, not by blood, but by fire, by trial, and by love unspoken, that needed no words.